Let's unpack this. First, it's prudent to look at the practicalities of suddenly calling for a two-state solution. This cannot happen while Hamas is at the helm. Penny Wong said herself in her speech that Hamas would have to go, and also that the Palestinian Authority would have to be significantly reformed. And yet, Hamas steadfastly refuses to surrender and release the hostages, which are Israel's conditions for a ceasefire. So, at least in the short term, that's not going to happen, unless Israel continues to bomb the heck out of the Gaza Strip to eliminate the terrorist group once and for all. Which, considering Penny Wong was musing over the conditions that would stop that from happening, is not what Penny Wong wants to happen. So why start calling for a two-state solution and the recognition of Palestinian statehood without Hamas in charge, when it seems that currently the only way to get rid of Hamas is for Israel to continue its military assault on Gaza? Now, even if you do pretend that recognizing Palestinian statehood is just for Israel's own security.
Now, there are those who always claim recognition is rewarding an enemy. This is wrong. First, because Israel's own security depends on a two-state solution. There is no long-term security for Israel unless it is recognised by the countries of its region. But the normalisation agenda that was being pursued before October 7 cannot proceed without progress on Palestinian statehood.
Second, Palestinians, both Hamas and most of the Palestinian people themselves, don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution, theirs. That's what the cry from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free means, the complete eradication of the State of Israel and the Jewish people to make way for a Palestinian state. Never mind the fact Hamas has explicitly stated it wants to eradicate Jews. A March poll from the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research found a majority of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, 52%, oppose the idea of a two-state solution. Not only that, the poll alarmingly found that in order to achieve an independent Palestinian state, 39% of Palestinians favored armed struggle, while 23% favoured negotiations and 27% peaceful popular resistance. And interestingly enough, a similar poll was taken in December and found that opposition to a two-state solution was much higher among Gazans at that point in time. Possibly the realities of war and desperation for peace have softened their stance. And Israelis are similarly disinterested in a two-state solution. A Gallup poll from December found a full 65% of Israelis opposed the notion, a very different situation from a decade ago, when 61% of Israelis supported a two-state solution. And look, why would Israelis want to live alongside an independent Palestinian state? There's no way, after the horrors of October 7, that Israelis could feel confident and secure with that living arrangement. And as for Palestinian statehood, columnist for The Australian, Greg Sheridan, points out the elephant in the room, which is that despite the Israelis on multiple occasions offering generous conditions for a Palestinian state, Palestinian authorities continue to reject them. Israel has on 3 separate occasions offered the absolute maximum that could conceivably be achieved in a Palestinian state. And of course, the Palestinians and their Arab allies also violently rejected the initial partition of the territory in 1947. Senior officials from Bill Clinton's administration, in exhaustive memoirs, document how the Palestinian leadership, which lives splendidly while its people suffer, rejected every such offer and constructed absurd demands that made it impossible. There were several reasons for this. The Palestinian leaders know that any one of them who makes peace with Israel will certainly be assassinated by extremists. More relevantly for Wong's speech, they also believe that the international community is so hostile to Israel that eventually it will deliver major benefits to the Palestinians without any need for compromise, concession, or even real negotiation on their part. Wong's speech will help confirm them in this view. Very well said. And in addition, Greg Sheridan points out that Palestine doesn't actually currently constitute a diplomatically recognizable state because, among other things, it lacks complete control of its territory, it lacks a coherent national government and effective institutions, and it's currently trying to claim disputed territory. In fact, the last uncontested sovereignty over the Palestinian territories was exercised by, believe it or not, the Ottoman Empire. Finally, the key fact that is willfully overlooked by politicians like Penny Wong is that the conflict in the Middle East is not merely a territorial dispute. As I have said before, this is about radical Islam. The inability of Muslim radicals like Hamas to live peacefully alongside Jewish people, or indeed anyone of a different faith, and their dogged quest to violently eliminate them in the name of an Islamic religious crusade. It is an irreconcilable difference, and no amount of opining about Palestinian statehood and two-state solutions by bleeding heart Western onlookers is going to change that. So, considering all of the above, why on earth is Penny Wong suddenly implying Australia needs to unilaterally recognise Palestinian statehood and calling for a two-state solution? Well, I can tell you exactly why. As reported by The Australian this week, Labor power brokers are afraid that key Labor-held seats in areas like Western Sydney with large Muslim populations are vulnerable to independents who may run at the next election on a pro-Palestine platform. And with the Albanese government not exactly riding high in the polls, it's not surprising high-profile government figures like Penny Wong are being wheeled out to highlight Labor's recently hardened stance against Israel. No wonder so many Jewish people in Australia are feeling so utterly betrayed.